Hey, everybody, it's Teepa. I have a guest, and we're about to have a courageous conversation. So, Marc, tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Sure. So I'm a brain health researcher, scientist by training. I wrote a book that recently came out called The Age-Proof Brain. And really the goal of that book and the hope of that book is to give people actionable, simple, science-based tips, little things that they can do each day. I like to say little things that have a big impact to really optimize their brain health each day. And so that really to get the best out of your brain, improve your focus, your memory, your productivity, but also lower the risk of dementia down the road. And so we have these new insights that there's things that we can do. We can take control of the destiny of our brain and lower risk of dementia anywhere from 30 to 60%. So the idea is really just want to get this information out to people so that they can take charge and take control of their brain health and realize that there's things that they can do.
Okay, so we are a big subscriber to typical aging versus this is what happens. It just happens to everybody. And it's like, well, that's not true. So let's pause there and let's look at what are some things that we can do something about. There, we know there's some, I got a genetic code. Dang, I got in the wrong line for a few things. I got in great line for other things. Teeth, I was definitely in the wrong line. I don't know. I got in my mom's line. I should never have gotten in that line. But there are other things that I have that are good traits, and I can build on those. But I can't change so much my gene pool, but I can choose to pick and choose what I do with myself and my life and my brain and how I use it and how I use my body. That might make a difference. And so we do a lot of that. So we're really excited to hear what the data supports that. We try to go out and find data, but it sounds like you're up really close to the data and you really like, we're the data like this, but then you decided to step back and go, this is what the data says. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Very true. Yeah. And so that what you're saying is very true, is that we're all dealt cards in terms of our genetics and our DNA, but it's not the full story. And that what we're seeing is that there's absolutely things that we can do that make a big impact. And so that taking control of how we sleep, getting a good night's rest, thinking about taking a walk each day. I mean, that's about as simple as it gets. We know that if we walk each day for about 30 minutes, we lower the risk of memory loss by about 60%. And so it's really all about risk. That's what we want to do. We're saying that what can we do to lower risk, to try to push the odds in our favor? And how can we put together some of these activities in our day-to-day life? You know, we don't have to make major changes. Nobody wants to change everything. So how do we do little things?
Very few of us do anyway. Yeah. Well, we do, but we don't do it. Like, I'm going to do it. And then after 2 months, we go back to what we did before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The interesting thing about brains is they like what they like. And when they're used to something, they get used to it and they like what they're used to. So getting them comfortable with change and building the change in small bites and increments so the brain accepts the change as normal, quote unquote. That's where normal is. This is normal. To get out and walk every day is actually normal.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And what you're saying is so true, that how do we build it into our day so that, we say, when I wake up in the morning, I go outside for a few minutes. I get a little fresh air. I take that morning walk, and that becomes that routine. But that's not just taking a walk. What you're actually doing is you're setting a clock in your brain. It's actually a countdown timer that helps you sleep that night. So we have this data. We have these insights that what you're doing is basically helping you sleep that night by getting a walk or getting some outside time, some daylight in the morning. So it's all about these little things that can become part of our day.
Oh, so now here's a cool thing, because what you said was it's not just getting a walk. It's when you get the walk and you start a clock ticking. Yeah. Now, I'm really curious about this because we work a lot on brain function. So is this somehow related to some hippocampal function and some function within some of the structures that help your brain learn and remember and do things, and then activate and then shut down so that you have some. So it's actually tied into wiring and structures of the brain.
Yeah. So hippocampus is important for memory, and we see in studies that people who take walks at any time of the day make their hippocampus function more optimally. They actually see the hippocampus get a little bit bigger. It's like taking your hippocampus to the gym and working it out. But when it comes to the timing and getting out in the morning, there's another part of your brain. It's called your suprachiasmatic nucleus, or your brain clock. And this brain clock is a part of the brain separate from the hippocampus, but it's basically plays a role in controlling mood, metabolism, sleep. It's like a conductor of an orchestra. You've got all the musicians, and it's telling the musicians what to do. And so it's regulated by light and dark. We're tuned to the sun rising and the sun setting. And by getting out in the morning to some natural light, what happens is that it starts this clock to basically several processes. But one thing it does is it kind of subdues the melatonin, which helps you wake up, because the melatonin helps you sleep at night. You want to turn it off in the morning and start a series of hormones that are released that are actually about helping you wake up and feel good. But it also starts a countdown mechanism. Our body and brain are on a clock that's tied to the sun rising and sun setting, and it helps us fall asleep at night. So walking is great, but any time of the day. But thinking about getting a little bit of it in the morning can help not only memory, but sleep.
Yeah. And so getting outside, I heard you say outside too, but it's not just about fresh air. It's about exiting the space and being in a bigger space and having some opportunities to be in that space, I think. Or at least
absolutely. It's about fresh air, it's about light. It doesn't matter if it's a cloudy day, it's that natural light. It's also nature. We're seeing all these studies that show that just a little bit of nature can lower our stress levels. Nothing wrong with stress here and there, but we don't want too much too often. And being in the presence of nature is really good for our brain. And obviously, people live in different environments. It doesn't have to be a national park. It can be a local flower bed. It could be a park around the corner. It could be a plant on your desk. We're seeing in some studies that, just looking at some nature can be good, very good for your brain, and help your brain kind of relax and calm down. So it's another example of something that is, very doable. We don't have to make these radical changes. It can be very doable things.
Yeah. And so one of the things we'll sometimes talk about is even just start for 5 minutes. If all you can convince yourself to do is 5, set an alarm for 5 minutes and let yourself go do it for 5. And get used to the 5 and then go to the 10 and maybe build up toward the 30.
And absolutely.
Your energy. So you're actually walking briskly rather than strolling. But, even if it's
absolutely.
with a stroll.
Yeah, and combine it. Another thing that works really well for the brain is just combine it with something you like to do. So either if it's like your favorite music, your favorite podcast, your favorite call a friend that you've always wanted to talk to, or walk with a friend. This idea of combining, making new habits. This time of year, we're always talking about New Year's resolutions, but it's hard to keep a habit that's not fun or that's not tied to something you already do.
Yeah. And so figuring out what are some things you like, if you're going to be doing something that's a challenge for you, then what's something you like that you can put in the bucket so that when you go, there's a plus, and then you got your little stick that you're using. Like, I got to get out of this. I got to get out. Like, well, cool. Go on. Yeah. And so exercise, but going, and again, the exercise, walking outside. So it wasn't some dramatic go to the gym and burn yourself to a crackly crunch for like 2 hours of really heavy duty work as a starter. Just certain people, that's going to be their thing. Most of us are like, I got to get up tomorrow. You know that, right?
Right. Yeah. There's exercise is great for the brain. And, sometimes intense is good, but the amount that makes you feel like you want to do it again tomorrow is a good, very general rule. Yeah.
Oh, so if you get so sore you can hardly move, that's probably not going to get your brain to really go, let's do it again.
Right. Yeah. Right. For many people.
Yeah. So getting up, getting out, going for a walk. And then, that sets you up a little bit better for sleeping. But give us some other things, because you got a bunch, I bet. And I know you do.
Yeah. So that that dose of nature is important. Thinking about giving yourself some nature time. Even as I said, there was a study they did in Japan where they found that if people just stared at a plant on their desk for 2 minutes, their stress levels dropped. And then what they found is that they said in the study, can we make people's stress levels drop faster and further than just staring at the plant? And they found that if they sprayed the plant with a little bit of water, their stress levels fell farther faster. And there's something about taking care of something, a sense of purpose. So, we know that we love pets, but if you have a pet, embrace the idea that there's aspects of that pet care that's good for your brain. Gardening is really good for the brain. Reminding yourself of a sense of purpose is really important for brain health too. We realize, and being social is important too. So, it could be a Zoom call, it could be a phone call, but we've seen, especially, the holidays are over, and these times of year, we want to make sure we're staying connected with people. There's these studies that show that people go to dinner parties have a lower risk of memory loss. You don't have to go to a dinner party if that's not your thing, but thinking about how can I stay connected? How can I, if I'm feeling disconnected or I'm feeling lonely, what can I do to, call a friend when I'm on my walk, meet a friend on the walk, combine these activities and bring social connection as part of your weekly activities.
Yeah. One of the things that we've noticed is since the pandemic, of course, we started doing a lot of things with some of our friends who are living with dementia and people who are supporting people living with dementia and just people we know on Zoom. I mean, Zoom is our little home away from home.
Yeah.
And it turns out for us, it feels like it's working to stay connected. So is that accurate, or do you have any data on that one, Mark? Is that legit?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's all this data coming in now that we want to really be aware of the loneliness factor. And it's important we talk about it. We talk about mental health. We talk about anxiety, depression. We now know that untreated anxiety and depression raise the risk of memory loss down the road. But if we can stay connected, these are complex things, anxiety, depression, they're not simple, but a piece of the complex puzzle is that we want to find a way to feel connected. It's a part of it. And for everybody, finding a way to say, it can easily feel, especially over the last few years, to feel disconnected, to feel lonely, and using the tools that we have, whether it's Zoom, phone calls, text. There is something about hearing and seeing somebody that's really great too. There was this really interesting study that they found that people, we text a lot now, and that can be good. That can be a great way to stay connected. But don't be afraid of a phone call or a Zoom call, because there is something about the human brain hearing the voice and seeing people and those connections that can be really good for the brain too.
Yeah. And one of the things we emphasize a lot is visual cues, audio cues, and then sensory motor cues. Yeah. When I do something and I go, I've got this herbal tea and I tried it and I just set you a present. And did you get it yet or not yet? Oh, and you got your herbal tea from me? Yeah. Okay, toast. And all of a sudden, not only are we connecting through Zoom, but we can choose to do more than that. And deepen connections and actually have a shared experience, even at a distance, which, again, wrapping your hands around a warm mug is actually, for many people, stress reducing.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a fascinating part of the brain that we're learning so much about, the mirror system. And, when I see you smile, I feel that. I feel the empathy of it. I feel the feeling of it. I see when you're holding that tea, I can almost taste it. There's something about these connections where we're wired to see and feel. And that's why we want to make sure we're maintaining eye contact in the world and not always like this on our phones. But there's a piece of that that's very important too, a part of that puzzle.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got some things now. We've got getting out early and getting out into the sunlight or the foggy night or whatever it is, but getting out in the morning to reset our clock, get the clock going. We also have exercising or walking, that actual product of getting yourself physically active to actually stimulate your brain and your body into productivity. Feeling like you have some purpose, like doing something that gives you a sense of purpose, whether it's pet care or plant care or maybe space care, even, getting the kitchen cleaned up or doing something with somebody, socially connecting, because that is another feature that really stimulates the brain and keeps the brain feeling better. Stress, managing that stress, that feeling of feeling distressed. experience some stress, we all believe that that's a healthy thing, but not living in distress. So really doing that. What else you got for us, Mark? Because you're doing some great, I mean, yeah, you got some good stuff going on here. What else you got?
Another thing to be aware of is just once or twice a year, really making sure you're checking in with your doctor. We're realizing how much other parts of our health and our body connect to our brain. So really just being on top of things like your heart health, diabetes, your gut. We realize that your brain's not an island unto itself. And all of these parts of the body really do play an important role. And the hopeful good news is we have really good treatments for things like diabetes, for example. 50% of the population either has prediabetes or diabetes. If diabetes isn't treated, it raises the risk of dementia by about 65%. So if we can treat it, we bring that risk back down. So we just want to get the word out that these other conditions are so important for your brain health. And again, we have good treatments for them. So we want to encourage people to, my book goes through all these connections and why they're important. And if you want to learn the science behind it, it's there for you. But the take home message is that we want to be on top of these relationships between our brain and the rest of our body, and do everything we can to leverage long-term brain health by taking care of these aspects of our overall health.
Cool. Yeah. And so ignoring health problems like, oh, my knee is killing me, I can't go walk because my knee is killing me, is actually, well, let's figure out what's going on here, because being in pain is stressful. And so it goes back to that idea of let's get some of the stress things off the table so we can actually focus better, because human beings in pain tend not to be very healthy brain-wise, because it's just distracting you and detracting from life. So
absolutely.
Yeah. And being worried or fearful of something.
Absolutely. Being on top of it.
Yeah. So I'm really worried because, I have a genetic family that, has a predisposition toward dementia. So let's say that's the case for somebody. Is that a healthy thing to be worried about it? And, so I'm worried about it, quote unquote.
Well, it's understandable. It's understandable to have those feelings, but we want to also get the word out that 95 to 99% of all cases of Alzheimer's are not strictly based on genes. And so that there's things that we can do. So we can lower, genes raise or lower risk. They play a part, but they're not the whole picture. And we have all these studies that show that just even the things we've talked about in the last, 15 minutes or so, they bring the risk down. And so if we can get on top of those things, if we can leverage them and stack them together, that we want to take those feelings of, acknowledge those feelings are real. They're real feelings. It's understandable, but we want to push that energy into action and saying that, well, let's do the things we can do and try to push that energy into something positive and realize, wait a second, it's not, 10 years ago where we said, we don't know what we can do. Now we know. So we want to get the word out, the things we can do. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, you haven't mentioned a couple, and I'm curious because I got a feeling they're in there. You just haven't brought them up. One of them is do something interesting and different with your brain rather than the same old, same old, same old. That's my best guess, but I could be wrong. I'm just, you can let me know. Am I wrong on that?
No, that is right up there at the top of the list. I call it cross-train your brain. And what I mean by that is that, if you go to the gym and you do the same thing over and over again. You're getting close to my weak spot now. Hang on there, Mark. Cross-training. This is like, what I mean by that is that if you go to the gym and you're always working out, just your arms, your biceps, after a while, that's might not look the best. We want to make sure that we're doing different parts of the body when we're working out, keeping it fresh. Same thing with the brain. And there's something about newness. What you said is so important. Our brain connections, as we get older, we can lose some connections, and our connections where our memories are. We just want to be making new connections, and we make new connections by learning new things. And it doesn't have to be, a crossword puzzle. It doesn't have to be a fancy app. It's about picking something you've always wanted to learn. It could be a musical instrument, a foreign language, it could be dancing. It's just think about newness, something new. And I like to think about your week and think about one day of the week you could do something that is, a new subject, art history, brain science, doesn't matter what it is, something that you've always wanted to learn. Take a course online, in person, whatever is appropriate. Second thing is think about doing something physical learning. It could be yoga, sport, aerobics, tennis, pickleball's taking over the world, something like that, golf.
Isn't it though?
Yeah, something like that. Because your brain is controlling movement, and that's a use it or lose it skill too. We want to make sure our brain is keeping our balance strong and all these things too. And then the third time of the week is think about doing something where you're, if you're learning something, if you're in a book club or you're in a course, talk about it with the people around you. Information, when you take it in and you talk about it, it's a boosted benefit. So you can say, like, you could go for your walk, talk about the book you're reading with your friend, then you're getting all three at once. But we want to make sure you're thinking about your week in terms of saying, am I learning some new things? Am I moving in a new way? And am I being social about the things I'm learning and talking about them? And then, that's a big bonus for your brain.
Yeah, so you're putting them all sort of in one basket. So if you don't choose to go on the walk that week, then we got to figure out, well, how are you going to fill in that space? Because that's recognize, fine, don't do the walk, but maybe get the bike out, or maybe, take the dog to the park and do something.
Meet a friend for coffee. Don't, have that conversation. Social is important for the brain. You're learning from the person, you're talking it out. All those things are good.
Yeah. So we're real strong advocates to this idea of, even if you have dementia, we truly believe people can optimize their brain, even though they're living with a condition that ultimately I can't keep it from progressing, but I sure can help us really optimize and give people a sense of value and purpose and using what they have until maybe they don't have it anymore. And then we readjust the scale and go someplace else. But having or not having isn't the bottom line. It's using what you have. At least that's our sense of it.
Right. That's a really, really great way to think about it.
Yeah. And so, okay, now let's get to the elephant in the room for a lot of people, the sleeping phenomena.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know we're right at sort of this time frame where we typically, we don't want to go a whole lot longer. But I do have this question about this sleep thing, because this is where we have some folks who will say, I have a really hard time with this. Or, oh, no, I get like 9-10 hours a night. And it's like, okay, talk to us a little bit about sleep and what we know about sleep and what you know about sleep, because you know a lot of good stuff.
Well, sleep is an area where we've made huge steps forward, and it's understandable to have trouble sleeping at some point in your life. We live in a world where it makes it hard to sleep. There's actually things in our environment that are making it hard to fall asleep and stay asleep. The good news is we've identified what those things are, and with some simple changes, we can really optimize our sleep. We clearly see this, and it's not about taking a sleeping pill. It's about really taking some assessments of your environment, what you're doing during the day. We talked about in the morning, taking that walk is important. So, you're preparing for your night's sleep the morning before that night's sleep. And then also being aware of, we could spend hours talking about all the studies about why sleep is so important, but I always like to tell this aspect because it really is just amazing that when you go to sleep at night, your brain essentially shrinks and it squeezes out waste and toxins and trash. And it squeezes it out. So, just living, your brain has byproducts of being alive. This, think about chemical reactions and their byproducts, like little factories in your brain making products, but they also make byproducts. And this waste can accumulate and interfere with our brain's ability to work and to function. So we have to get rid of it. So one of the ways you get rid of that waste is while you're sleeping, you squeeze it out. Think of your brain like a sponge. Then fluid comes up from your spinal cord and washes this trash away. This is the brain wash. And it's this amazing new system we now understand called the glymphatic system. So every single night you're squeezing out your brain, washing the trash away. And that's why sleep is one of the reasons why sleep is so important. So we don't want to give this information so people wake up tonight 2 a.m. going, oh, no, I'm not getting my brain washed. That's not the point. It's okay to wake up. That's a key tip, actually. You actually wake up throughout the night normally. It's part of the sleep cycle. So when you wake up tonight, remind yourself, you just had a brain wash. You want a few more washes and rinses throughout the night. It's okay to wake up. We do want to get back to sleep. So some tips really quick are try not to check your phone. Try not, as addicting as it is to check your phone, put it in the other room or put it far enough away that you're not going to look at it, because the light from your phone is like the morning light that is stimulating your brain to wake up. We don't want that to happen in the middle of the night. So think about, there's some breathing exercises that people can do. Stay calm, stay relaxed. Don't think about all the things you have to do tomorrow or all the things you didn't get to that day. That's not the time to have those thoughts. But thinking about realizing we want to prioritize, we want to optimize sleep. And there's these things we can do. So we talked about a few of them. That morning light's really important. Not checking your phone right before bed, not waking up in the middle of the night and checking your phone, and some things there too. But that's a good start.
That's a great start. Yeah. And so really looking at, and there's so many more things, so we may have to have you at some point if you didn't entice you back. Yeah. Because I think what you're talking about, the courageous conversation we're having is we are not talking about preventing dementia, but we are talking about lowering our risk. Yes. And let's get real about this. Yeah. And small things that we can undertake, build into our habit structure so that over time, we're actually diminishing our risk realistically. Yeah. And it takes courage to do this, particularly when everyone around you is looking for a quick fix. Yeah. Here, what med can I take? What can I read about, supplement on TV? Right. And what we're really saying is, well, you got to take care of what you got and you got to use what you got. So any final thoughts or words on this? I mean, really, we're asking people to have courage that when you do this, you do make a difference in your life and you can use this to help other people as well, which is what we're really about.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for all that you're doing because it's so critically important. And also, the word courage is the right word. And the other word that I like to think about is hope. That this idea that if we have now these things that we can do, and I think that you said it so well, that it's not about an expensive program or being on a ton of supplements. Supplements in some cases, if you need it in the right case under the care of a physician, is understandable. But it's not about these like programs that are involved with apps and all these other things it's about taking these simple steps, working with your doctor, your personal physician, being on top of your health, doing fun things. A lot of these things are fun. That's the good news. And they're things that really make you feel good day to day, but they also have this dual benefit of lowering the risk of dementia down the road and protecting your brain down the road. So it's all very hopeful and positive and things that we can do.
So this inclusive community that we're building makes sense because getting connected and doing what is good for ourselves and healthy for other people really does make a difference when we can get ourselves to do that. So
Marc, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're interested in more details, the detail behind the science behind the information that Marc's sharing out, he's got a book and it's an excellent book. It is not a easy, like, I'm going to go to bed now, so I'm going to read this book so I can get drifting off. That's not the kind of book it is. No, that's not what it is. But it is a great read with lots of good content. But you want to be in little bites, little pieces, I think, and take it in and see what you're going to do with it before you move on to the next piece, the next chapter. See how you're going to embed it in your life would be what I would say about the whole thing. But that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Marc, any words of wisdom for everybody as we take it out of here with this courageous conversation?
I would say that start with, don't try to do too many different things at once. I think pick one thing, make it, first of all, congratulate yourself and pat yourself on the back for the things you're already doing. I'm sure that on this list of things, you're like, I'm doing that. And that's great. That's wonderful. But think about, what's one thing I could add, one thing, and how you can incorporate it in a fun way into your day-to-day life.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you, Marc. And we will use this and see how people are doing. We'll ask folks to give us some information back, because sometimes that helps too. When you have somebody checking in on you, it can make you commit yourself to doing something. All right. Talk to y'all later.
Hi, I'm Tifa Snow, and you just found our YouTube channel and watched one of our videos. I'm the owner and founder of Positive Approach to Care. Thanks for watching, and if you liked, if you have a comment about, or you would, please share it with people you know. Oh, and if you haven't yet done it, consider subscribing. We'll let you know when the next new video comes out. And you might want to visit our website, www.tipasnow.com, where you'll find other resources as well. See you there.